What if I told you that we could treat incredibly complex brain conditions without ever actually touching the brain? Today, we're going to dive into vagus nerve stimulation, an amazing technology that literally hacks the body's own superhighway to bring calm and order to the brain.
But, to really get why this is such a game changer, we first have to understand a massive problem that leaves millions of people feeling like they've run out of options. So let's talk about epilepsy. In Europe alone, you've got about 6 million patients. But for a staggering 30% of them, that's almost a third, the standard anti-epileptic drugs simply don't work. This is called drug-resistant epilepsy, and it means 1.8 million people are desperately searching for something, anything that will help.
Now, for some people, the next stop on the list is brain surgery. And that is as invasive as it gets. But for so many, that's not even an option. Maybe doctors can't pinpoint where the seizures are coming from, or maybe the surgery itself is just far too risky. So this created a huge, urgent need for a better and, frankly, safer solution.
So, what if you could influence the brain without all that risk? What if you could tap into a path that's already there? A kind of biological superhighway that connects the brain to, well, almost everything else.
Well, let me introduce you to the hero of our story today, the vagus nerve. It is the longest, most complex cranial nerve we have, and it acts like this massive, two-way information pipeline between your brain and your vital organs. It's really the heart of our body's rest and digest system.
Our journey starts right here, deep inside the brainstem. You can think of this as the command center for everything you don't have to think about, like your breathing, your heart rate. And you can see the vagus nerve, which is also known as cranial nerve X, sprouting right out of this critical hub.
And this image just brilliantly shows you how incredibly far this nerve reaches. From that spot in the brainstem, it travels all the way down through the neck, branching out and plugging into almost every single major organ in your torso. Your heart, your lungs, your stomach, your intestines. It really is a superhighway.
So with this direct line to the brain just sitting there, scientists and doctors started asking a really revolutionary question. Could we hack this nerve and use it to send therapeutic signals back up to the brain?
And it turns out the answer was a resounding yes. This led to something called vagus nerve stimulation, or VNS. The idea behind it is so powerful but also so simple. It's like a pacemaker, right? But instead of regulating your heart, it sends these mild, carefully controlled electrical pulses up the vagus nerve to help regulate your brain. And the procedure itself completely avoids the brain. So first, a tiny pulse generator, about the size of a silver dollar, is implanted just under the skin in the chest. Second, a very thin, flexible wire is guided up to the neck and wrapped gently around the vagus nerve. And finally, a doctor programs it to deliver the therapy. This picture here from an actual procedure shows you exactly where that magic happens. Doctors make a pretty small incision in the neck to get to the nerve and place the electrodes. And yeah, it's still surgery, but when you compare it to literally opening up someone's skull, this is a whole different ballgame.
Now, what's absolutely incredible is the level of fine-tuning that doctors have. They use an external programming wand, kind of like a remote control, to adjust every little aspect of the electrical signal for each patient, how strong it is, how long each pulse lasts, and how often they're sent.
Okay, so this is the million-dollar question, right? How does sending a tiny electrical pulse to a nerve in your neck actually stop the massive electrical storm of a seizure that's happening deep inside your brain?
Well, the science shows it's not just one thing. VNS launches this amazing three-pronged attack. It changes the actual chemistry of the brain, it physically boosts blood flow to key areas, and it helps fix the chaotic brain waves that cause seizures. It's the combination of all three that creates such a powerful anti-seizure effect.
Let's zero in on the brain chemistry for a second. VNS basically helps rebalance the brain's go and stop signals. Think of it as turning up the volume on the brain's natural calming chemicals, the stop signals, while at the same time dialing down the excitatory ones that can trigger a seizure.
And this diagram just illustrates that perfectly. VNS therapy is essentially strengthening the brain's own braking system. It makes it much harder for that runaway electrical activity that defines a seizure to even get started in the first place.
So the theory is fantastic. It makes a ton of sense. But what about in practice? Does it actually work? Let's get to the results, because this is where the case for a new era of treatment really gets compelling.
The clinical data is incredibly promising. And one of the most important factors seems to be timing. This data here compares patients who got VNS therapy early in their diagnosis to a group that got it much later, and wow, the results are pretty striking.
Just look at this. In only 3 months, patients who started VNS therapy early were 3 times more likely to be completely free of seizures than the patients who waited. We're talking 15% versus just over 4%. For those patients, that's not just a statistic, that is a life-changing difference.
And because this technology works by rebalancing the brain's fundamental systems, its potential is just massive. It's already FDA approved for treatment-resistant depression, and right now it is being seriously investigated for a whole host of other conditions, everything from anxiety and migraines all the way to Alzheimer's disease.
Which, it all brings us to one final, really big question. We've proven we can safely and effectively treat the brain by tapping into this superhighway. So what's next? What other conditions could we manage or maybe even cure just by learning to speak the language of the body's own internal wiring?